Okay, people. It's 5:30 in the morning here, November 7th. This is a back-to-back video in regards to my grandson and quote-unquote hip surgery. Before I go too far into this video, I just want to remind people that I live in the city of Surrey, British Columbia, Canada, where there's an extremely high number of that quote-unquote predator class that targets certain individuals, certain families within the district of Fraser Health Authority, knowing that whatever they do, they're never going to be held to account because our justice system in the province of British Columbia, Canada, is lopsided and against the people and is in favor of the corporation and discriminates and is prejudiced against, well, poor people, minorities who cannot defend themselves because they don't have $50,000 to $100,000 to slap down to get themselves a lawyer to represent justice in a courthouse. Okay, I just wanted to remind people of basically what I'm up against in regards to the history of my family and what we've been facing for a long time as a direct result of that predator class that's propped up by the province of British Columbia, Canada, and its public union sector in general. To keep the stakeholders happy to whatever it is that they do in regards to serving the public with ethics or without ethics. So, with that said, I looked up this program that Amari has signed up on, and it turns out, in a nutshell, that it was quote-unquote formulated in 2014 to become the first in North America, beginning in the province of British Columbia, Canada, based on Sweden. I read this last night. Based on Sweden and another country, I can't think of the name right now, where whatever British Columbia, Canada is doing isn't something that they thought of on their own because they're adopting the basic principle from other countries such as Sweden, and there's another country in there, okay? And they started the initial stages in 2014 to bring in a surveillance program suggesting that it was in the best interest of the child. And that's where that study comes in, people, that they're trying to get me to sign up on and answer their questions. But you see, Amari's already on that study because he's enrolled in this program, right? They're just not giving me the full information. Right? And by 2015, after the first initial discussions to even consider bringing in a hip surveillance program into this province, they had already decided to do that. And, you know, they started listing, logging, whatever, the kids that would fall under that category when it came to cerebral palsy and to what severity level that they were at. And then they started off with centers, right, to get the list of kids from 2 separate centers. This is what I read in a nutshell last night, okay? I will provide the link. I've already made reference to it in my last video. And, what do you call it? I had to read like this, people. Right? Because we know that I've basically been disenfranchised from my doctor, my family doctor. I mean, how convenient that was, right? When you think of gang stalking and the targeting of an individual, kind of falls in line with that. I just wanted to say that, right? Because I never did anything to that doctor. All I wanted was my daughter's medical files. That was it. Anyway, so they first started with their meetings to discuss even the possibility of creating a HIP program based on a Swedish model or research or whatever that had been going on prior for about 20 years or so, okay? And now they just wanted to bring it in and kind of put it all under one roof, you know, get public tax dollars supporting the program, building that network of sharing information, you know, selling it to the stakeholders, whoever those stakeholders are. I can only imagine, because I don't feel like I'm a stakeholder in this, people. I feel like more like my family's the victim to it, but besides that point. And of course they want their funding for their studies and all this other stuff, right? And you have to remember, at the same time as they're doing all this stuff, they're bringing in and educating special teams, people, in the children's hospital for organ harvesting between children. Okay? Right? The government invested millions of dollars to train and to formulate a specialized team solely for the purpose of harvesting organs at the children's hospital from children to implant them into other children, or whatever they do with them in terms of organs. The point is they spent millions of dollars formulating an operating team for that purpose. As they created a HIP surveillance program to capture kids into a greater web of surveillance so that they can build on quality health care to prevent pain or to save costs, as if in that, well, we're not going to pay for the transportation to the children's hospital because your grandson can take a bus. But if he can't take a bus, you get a letter for him, but not for you, because ultimately, you know, it's easy to remove me and keep him. Do what they want, people. Right? It's not like I can run to my doctor and ask for help. I can't even get signed on to disability. The one time I get my disability form filled out, right, they deny it at the office, tell me to take it to my doctor to you know, what is that called? Adjust it. I go to the doctor's office, and how convenient. He's gone for 2 weeks. He's not even there, people. So did that get adjusted? No. So they knew that. They knew that when they denied it, people. Never got refilled out, because the last time I seen my doctor, I asked him to fill it out, and he told me, not this time, come back, we'll do it next time, right? Because he was busy. That's what he told me. But at the same time, when I got to the counter and was doing the paperwork for my daughter's medical files, he also told me to take him to court. And he said that if I wanted him to redo my disability form, and this was before he told me to take him to court, that I had to pay $250 for him to do it a second time. Even though the first time he had done it, it got you know, an A on it. And when I went to go see him to correct whatever it was that needed to be corrected, he wasn't even there. And then when I went and seen him again, asking him to fill it out, he refused to do it, told me to come back. And then when he seen what I was doing about my daughter's medical files, he told me to take him to court because these people never had intentions of giving me disability. Even though I've been on long-term persons with multiple barriers, as I'm sitting here reading this shit like this. Okay? So don't think that this is easy, because it's not. All right? But I've been through it too many times already to know what's going on here. Okay? That's just the way I see it, people. Whether you agree with me or not, now I've got some troll coming in with their thumbs down. More than likely it has to do with Julian's sister, because for whatever reason she thinks that she can do fucking better even though she does shit. And if it's not her, it's her and her little friends that, you know, do their little TikTok videos, right, thinking they can do a fucking better job. Yeah, a better job at handing Amari over to the wolves and then just saying sola levi, you know, and just, right, blame the doctor, right? Or maybe it's somebody from that hospital. Who fucking knows? Who fucking cares? Okay, so let me get back on this. So, they took a model from a foreign country. They implemented the stages as they went through the facilities that they already had, and they built themselves a program that they implemented into the children's hospital so they could get public tax dollars to create the first one-of-its-kind hip surveillance program with the premise of it's in the best interest of the child, quote-unquote, to prevent the pain, future pain, or whatever it is that they're shooting for here, okay? And by 2000, they started after everything was all said and done, and they had their little meetings, and you know, and it looked like they were going to get budget approval from the province to pay for the program, and you know, they made arrangements to move the program and build it into the children's hospital, right? And then by 2015, they had their list of kids, and you know, they had everything, and they had all their ducks in the order, and then by 2016, they pretty much launched it. So in February of 2016, that's when that hip surveillance program actually became official, quote unquote, with 250 kids signed up on it from the province of British Columbia, Canada. Okay? They even go as far as documenting how many square miles are in the province of British Columbia, Canada. Okay? So they rallied up 250 kids so that they could come in with their core budget, right, and build in their program into the children's hospital. And that was solidified and launched fully without any hiccups because they had already gone through all that crap in 2016 of February. Amari was born in September of 2017. Okay? He clearly was injured at birth, people. Right? They knew it. They had a hand in it. I wouldn't say the people at the quote-unquote hip surveillance program, but the hospital staff at the Surrey Memorial Hospital definitely had a hand in it, and they covered it up. They covered it up just like they covered up what they did with Uncle John, and they covered up like they did with Shemaine. And you could even say Sierra. And we already know where I stand in all of that, people, in terms of my doctor. So as they built their program, you know, they made sure that they were connected into the physiotherapy, this group, this group, this group. So it's a very integrated group that works with each other in order to capture those children as they're being born, and then plug them into their program. as they plan surgery, as a study. Because that's basically what they plugged Amari into, was into a study, a particular protocol that's supported by the province of British Columbia, Canada, that wants to boast that it's the first of its kind in North America. So they can take those study results and compare them to Sweden, you know, and so in this country, in this country, in this country, with all these different countries doing all these different things. Because when that seventh individual who walked into the room after the doctor stormed off, because he didn't want to ask questions anymore, especially when it related to what Dr. God, Dr. Death is proposing, right? You know, he came in talking about, well, you know, do you want to sign up to this study? And I'm like, well, what's the study? And he's going, well, you know, we're doing comparison to, you know, this program and Botox. And he mentioned something else. So there are other alternatives to Amari if he should suffer from pain, like Botox. But of course, that's never been presented to me, people, because that's not what it's ever been about. With Amari, it's always been about fucking surgery. From the very beginning, it's always been about surgery, because the doctor that I'm dealing with is one of the individuals who helped to create this program. His name is on this program before it was even fucking created, okay? How come I'm not being offered Botox? Or other alternatives? Why am I just being offered, and I'm not even being offered, I'm being told? Why am I being told that Amari is going to have surgery? It's just a matter of time, basically, based on the doctor's experience, which roots back to 2014. So they're operating under a budget that they have to fulfill. They have to have so many quote-unquote kids hooked up into their system in order to get the full dollar amount for their study, for their program, for their whatever it is that these guys are doing. There's a budget around that, okay? And then not only is there a budget around that, but it budgets in everybody else's fucking paycheck. The physiotherapist, this person, this group, that group. And then if they bring in the operating team for organ harvesting, hell, that's another big budget. And that's not factoring in all this illegal money being passed under the fucking table in between doctors as they're operating, like they did with Chimay. Okay, so what? Does that warrant a thumbs down? I guess it does, because that's the hard, cold facts about what's going on in the province of British Columbia, Canada. All right, I already seen it happen. And now it's kind of like they're setting my grandson up for the same thing, because that doctor, listening to what we listened to yesterday, comparing the numbers that he quoted, don't match up, people. He said 10% of the kids get infection, don't do well, right? Blah. And another 10%, what was it? Only 80% are supposed to do well, kind of stay at their own baseline. But then at the end, after we got through a little bit more, he turned around and he said 30% have to go back in and have fucking surgery again. So what is it? 80%, 70%, 30%, 20%, 10%? Like, none of the numbers are matching up. Okay? And, like, honestly, these people, like, anyway, I just want to say that this program has a point to prove on multiple levels. It has a point to prove to its stakeholders so it can retain its funding. First of all, they have to have an X number of kids in order to get the full funding. They get extra money into the hospital because they're already signed up with some international fucking study. Okay? Right? Amari's already on it by default because of he's in the program itself and he's with the founding doctor of the program. Why they would need my signature, I don't know. Outside of, they just want me to answer the questions as it relates to me. But when it relates to them, I'm insignificant. Because he's already plugged in to their program that they created in 2014, solidified in 2016, a year and a bit before Amari was born. Okay? It was like Amari was injured at birth just so they could sign him up to this fucking program. Here, I spitted it out. I spitted it out. Because Amari was injured at birth. At birth, people. 5 days, Shimei was in labor. 2 of those days, the hospital sent her away. Okay? And then they let it drag all the way for hours and hours and hours, something like 12 fucking hours, right? On the 5th day, before they rushed her off into an emergency C-section. By that time, it was too late, 5 fucking days later. Okay? Whose fault is that? That is the hospital, the Surrey Memorial Hospital, and their staff, who's plugged in with this program, people. How come I'm not being offered Botox for Amari, for pain relief? Is because what? Because Amari doesn't suffer pain? So therefore Botox doesn't become an issue? But yet surgery is, even though Amari doesn't suffer from pain? How does that work, people? Because this program is specifically designed for that, from what I can tell. Okay? Simply by the types of doctors that I'm dealing with here. Right? And what the mission statement is for their stakeholders. So anyway, that's where the program came from. I'm sure it came on the foot of good intentions. Right? But at the end of the day, there's a lot of shady shit going on in the province of British Columbia, Canada, with a high number of the predator class that likes to exploit the most vulnerable by any means fucking necessary for that dollar bottom line. All right? And families like mine and people like me, we're expendable. There's a reason why I can't go see my family doctor, quote unquote, unless I want to have conflict. Okay? They made it that way, people. Because they're trying to figure out how to fucking disconnect me from my grandson. And they're going to use this program to quite possibly do it. Even though Amari suffers from no pain. So have your little friend and come in and do another one of those fucking things because you can't handle the truth. And for whatever fucking reason, you seem to think that you can do a better job. Even though whoever the fuck you are, you don't do shit. Absolutely shit. To even think you could do anything. Outside of with your broken thumb. Because you would be the one that would hand over Amari on a fucking dinner plate and say, "C'est la vie, do what you want because I can't cope with it. I can't cope with it. If you injure my grandson, or if you injure my nephew, or if you injure, it's not going to matter because I can't cope with it. I'm too afraid to stand up to the corruption. So do what you want with Amari, because at the end of the day, I can't cope with it." Bring in the crowd. Bring in the fucking crowd. I dare you to bring in the fucking crowd like the good old fucking days. How about that one? Convince yourself that you're making a difference. When in fact you do nothing. Absolutely nothing. And you would be the first one to sacrifice Amari just so that you can continue doing nothing. How about that? Anyway. So that's the beginning of this program. It was basically to plug in to a larger study group that originated from other countries. Because you have to remember, they bring in these doctors from other countries. The doctor that I'm dealing with came from Israel, okay? And they wanted to ensure their funding block. And then also be able to get extra funding through their study programs, because that study is being funded outside of what the program itself is being funded. And in order to ensure that they get the base amount of funding and they can get their yearly increments of increased funding, they have to have an X number of kids signed up to the program. So if they're lacking in kids, they have to create the numbers in order to be able to get the funding. That, in my opinion, is where Amari falls into the fray, okay? Because they didn't want Shemay, first of all, testifying in any kind of capacity as to what was going on with Uncle John, or any kind of capacity if it ever came up with whatever was going on with Andre, okay? And so on and so on, all right? So what better way to keep Shemay fucking quiet was, you know, to kind of 5 days, people. 5 days. After 5 days, how many hours is that in terms of 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours? I don't know after 70, but 5 days. How many hours did it take for the hospital to finally birth Mari under an emergency C-section, where it was clear to see that he came out fucking twitching after it was all said and done, and then they had the audacity to blame the mother. They had the audacity to blame the mother because they knew that the government allows nefarious activity within their ranks to be able to prop up their programs, whether it's illegal organ harvesting, hip surveillance programs, this program, that program, and that fucking program. It doesn't matter as long as the public union sector is getting what it wants. Okay? Without the kids, they don't get the money. They don't get the money, people. And they need new blood so they can justify whatever it is the fuck that they're doing in order to continue getting that money. Kids grow up. They outgrow the program. So they need more kids by any means necessary. Some people, they have no problem just handing it over, the child. Just take the sacrifice. As long as I don't have to deal with the problem, just take. Oh, that's them. When I was at that hospital, I don't know, I was walking, I don't know if I walked to the, I was walking somewhere. And there was a woman there with her teeny weeny little child in a wheelchair with the child like this in braces, and I looked because this is what this doctor, these people want to do. So I'm looking, right, and I said, like, right? Is right? I asked a question in terms of, like, if that's comfortable. You know what? That child didn't even look at me, people. That child just kept his head down as if it was, you know, like a doll. Like, completely void of anything. Like, I wonder if, you know what I'm saying? Like, just no life to it. Absolutely none. This is what they want to bring to my grandson with all these complications. right? And having to go in and rewash the wound and do this and do that, and and then find out that he's going to continue to suffer with pain for the rest of his life as a direct result, with 30% of those operations having to go back in and have it done again because of growth, and it didn't fuse and it didn't grow, right? Because it's a new surveillance program that is trying to develop best practices, even though they don't give me no options outside of your grandson will have surgery, it's just a matter of time. That's it, because he's on this program, our program. So be prepared to sacrifice him when we say so. And if you decide to fight and balk at it, well, we're going to make it fucking hard for you. Not only are we going to publicly humiliate you and make you grovel for freaking transportation, even though we informed you that, part of the HIP surveillance program, that is kind of like included when you really need it, right? But of course, we didn't need it, right? We needed to insult Judy and her intelligence. That's what we need to do. And when that doesn't work, we need to disconnect her from her fucking doctor so that, she just, right, is subject to rumorville and whatever the doctors have got to say, even though the doctors are basically doing shit outside of maybe covering up fucking murder, right? Covering up illegal organ harvesting, covering up God knows what else they're covering up as they do their backroom deals in between themselves and their groups and their clinics and their hospitals and that hospital and that program, and right? That's what's going on, people. That's what's going on. Whether you want to believe it or not. Of course not. You don't want to believe it because you don't live it. Right? You haven't had your family members go through like what my family members have go through, or what are going through. Right? As a matter of fact, some of you are probably even involved. Right? How do we know that doctor that took out Shimei's organs isn't watching this video? A doctor what? What's his name? Dr. Barr, right? I know he was a Punjabi with a big fucking turban on his head, standing back, just looking, right? Never had the fucking balls to come up and say anything to me, but he sure damn was looking. Well, yeah, you were looking, weren't you? But he got caught, people, and the government's protecting him because they call it just entertainment. Everything that my family goes through is just fucking entertainment. So here's the entertainment. John Horgan, Adrian Dix, Dr. God, Dr. Death, a.k.a. Bonnie Henry. Here's your fucking entertainment. Tasty Bonnie, a.k.a. Julian's Keeper. Here's your entertainment. And anybody else that's connected to those individuals. Here's your entertainment. It's important to know where this program came from, people, and why. Okay? It came from an outside source with outside doctors trying to secure themselves a paycheck at the convenience of being located in one location, as in, quote unquote, the children's hospital. So there's no disruptions with their funding. But if the kids dry up, there is no funding. They started off with 250 kids. They started off. How many of them are already aged out? Does it matter? Because the more kids signed on, the more money that program creates. If kids die, who cares? They just transplant those organs into somebody else's fucking body. Right? If they want to launder money, it's easy. They just play games with the parents. Right? make it sound like, oh, well, we couldn't transplant the organs because, you know, when we did this, did that, the body became contaminated. So there was nothing to transplant. When in fact they fucking did, because they sold it on the black market, people. They sold those organs on the black market. So they don't waste nothing. Absolutely nothing. They just make sure they have the supply. Okay? What? They're going to injure Amari, he's going to die, and they're going to say, do you want to donate his organs? Yeah, okay. Or are they going to do a fast one like Shmei and say, oh, well, we couldn't because, you know, he got so full of pus that it destroyed his organs, so there was nothing to harvest, when in fact they already ripped everything out and fucking sold them. That's how much faith I have in these individuals, people. Why am I not being offered alternatives? Why? What's so special about Amari that he has to have surgery, even though they tell me he doesn't? In terms of, you will hear it. If I say no, they just back off. Yeah, okay, I believe that like a fucking hole in the head. Because that wasn't the agenda. That's not the agenda. The agenda is to prove to the world how British Columbia, Canada is such a great province to be in, and how we're like the sound barrier breaker in terms of we're the first in all of North America to build in a hip surveillance program. At the expense of. Now I wanted to run this tape recorder as for educational purposes, because this is what families go through. Not everybody is as vocal, and a lot of people just hand over their children like sacrifices, right? Okay, I'm not just handing over Amari, okay? It's not happening like that, people. As a matter of fact, I'm so stressed out with this shit that Amari's going on a regime for exercise here. I'm going to start recording the things that I do in terms of exercise, because I know his legs are getting stronger, okay? I do strength resistant exercises with him, okay? And he's getting more stronger and more confident with it, and once these people do what they do, that's it. He's going to be put back to infancy, and he's going to be that little boy sitting like this with his head down, not moving, okay? Not responding. I guess the child was drugged, must have been in pain, right? You know, par and parcel of the fucking program. Put him into pain. There's that loosh harvesting. Drive the fucking caregivers nuts with misinformation, twisted information, numbers that don't fucking match up, gang stalking, you know, whatever it may be. I'm going to record his exercise program. So when they want to come with the knife, I have the evidence that they destroyed everything that I worked hard for, and Amari worked hard for, and everybody else that helps me with this in terms of preventing surgery, people. Unless it's absolutely 100% necessary. So that he can stay happy. And actually have a quality of life. Not a bunch of fucking rhetoric. In pain. And don't come to me and say, well, he died and, you know, you can help somebody else by donating his organs. Yeah, okay. That's a bunch of fucking rhetoric, too. That's all that is. Because even if you said no, they're going to take what they want, and that's the point. They take what they want. They take and take and take. They take so much, they take where there's nothing left to fucking take. That's what Shemay and T. Sierra taught us. Do you know I have yet to get that report from the cops with their so-called investigation? No phone calls, nothing writing, nothing, people. Was there ever an investigation? Of course not, because the whole thing was fake. We have it on fucking video, right? Did I ever get anything in writing from the coroner's office? Nothing, people. The only thing I ever got was just a little phone call. How the hell did I get a death certificate? How did I get a death certificate by the 19th of April? Before the investigation was even over? Tell me, how is it possible for me to get a fucking death certificate when they were investigating what happened to Sierra? Well, then it's not because they were investigating people. They were trying to cover their tracks. Okay, that's what we're dealing with here.